Welcome back from lunch. We're going to start in our first tutorial. Our first tutorial is going to be this one here. It's called Color Chooser Tutorial. It's going to be a slider mixed in with some text boxes, mixed in with some nice color stuff. Put the pieces together. It's a nice little starter tutorial after the one I gave you this morning, because it's kind of another baby step. And the object here is to learn about the Objective-C code and how the programming is working. So that's what we're going to focus on as we go through the tutorial. At the same time, who knows, you might learn something about iOS development and working with building apps. So we're going to build an app here. If you can't build the app, don't want to build the app, don't have an Apple computer with you today, you can download the one next to it. It says Color Chooser Solution. Because some of you who aren't here aren't going to be able to build it, who aren't here with the right computer and the right resources can't build it. So you can always see it later. But let's go run through the tutorial. The tutorial here is a PDF file. So I have it downloaded already. Oops, thought I had it downloaded. Here it is here. And it's called RGB Color Controller. Well, alright, so we'll see how this works. Actually, it's nice to kind of see the finished app. Here's the finished app. I'm going to make a little screen that looks like that. So instead of a label, we're going to use a slider. Slider is going to do some data conversions for us. It's going to take integers and floats. So floats turn them into integers, take the integers, put them in the little boxes down here, and then make a hexadecimal number out of it. And then also at the same time change the view background color to the RGB, the red, green, or blue combination that we put together. So it's kind of an interesting one because it kind of demonstrates how to put the pieces together as well in terms of the programming part. So go ahead and open up Xcode if it's not opened up already and create a new Xcode project. I am going to use, you want to use the iOS on this one actually. So use the iOS option and go single view application. And the next app I show you, if I remember, I'm going to do an OS X app for you and show you what it looks like. But let's get through this one, and this afternoon we'll take a look at the other options. So this one's going to be color. I'm going to call mine Color Changer. Doesn't really matter what you call it. And you see that the defaults are put on what I left it at last time. So that's one of the little tricks. If you don't want to keep changing around, find something that works for you. Every time you create a project, it automatically does that. You don't have to keep changing it. I wish Eclipse would do that, actually. It doesn't do that. You have to keep changing stuff. So I'm going to save it to my desktop, and there it is. If I look at the project files themselves, they look the same as the last one I just looked at. I have my little storyboard here, or excuse me, my storyboard file, whoops, with my view. Trying to click on my view, it's not working. Move my view over, there we go. Got my view moved over. So let's see what we're going to do. So let's see. I'm not going to follow this exactly because this was written for a very older version before the storyboard came around. But we're going to add 6 UI labels, 3 sliders, and 3 text fields to the view to arrange it to look like that. So let's go ahead and build that. So I'm going to put all my labels out first. I'm just going to start left to right. So I got a red, a green, and a blue label. So I'm going to power build my interface right now. When I say power build, it's just like just going to drag and drop and stick stuff over here. So this one's red. RG green. Oops. Green. Blue. And I'm going to have one down here. What's that one's going to be called? It's going to be called Decimal. Oops, wrong one. And then Hex is the other one. Decimal. As the day goes by, I remember more. Decimal. We have Hex. Put Hex underneath. Okay, very good. Now the decimal is going to have 3 different boxes, so I'm going to go back here and go here for text, edit text, edit text. Oops, let's just try text. We got 1 little box, 2 little box, 3 little box. Probably should have just cut and pasted one into the boxes and stuck them in there. Maybe I'll make them all the same size, who knows. I'm just going to eyeball it. One in the middle, it looks a little small. Close enough for government work. There we go. Actually, the trick I do is I just make them so that like the distance between them is about the same. Then they look about the same. Who cares if they're really the same? I don't know. And now if I was building this for someone paying me to do this, I probably might measure it, but who cares? I think I'm going to need also another label here because I'm going to put the hex number on here. So I'm going to put another label on here. And I like to stretch these labels out actually when I put them on here like this. Because sometimes you'll put something in the label and the label will be really small because you dragged it over there. But then it expands past the width of the label. So now we need some sliders. So just like the word says, you just type in slide or slider. So I'm going to drag some sliders over here. And I like to stretch them out, make them the whole width of the screen. There we go, looks pretty good. Now, when you're doing this, if you're in the Android class or if you've taken any Android development, this is like the BMW programming. Android is sort of like the Pinto. You guys know Pintos? Toyota. No. I shouldn't say that. Toyotas are good cars. The Pontiac kind of has the Pontiac has like a cluttered, kind of clumsy kind of feel to it. You know, like it's all, the Pontiac is written in XML code. You know, it's Android. The BMWs, you know, more, I don't know, costs more, but it's worth it. Luxury here. All right, so I guess a label here. Stick a label out here. I'm going to call this my fabulous slider, and I'm going to call this color changer app. There we go. I'm going to put a label on it, right? All right, and you see, this is the thing. I mean, you can go like this, you can drag it, and it automatically centers for you. See how fast I built that? It takes me about twice as long, or just times it by 3. Maybe 3 times as long to build it on an Android system. It just doesn't come out this clean looking either. Because it's just not as easy. Long story short. So, yeah, I'm biased towards iOS, and I'm proud of it. So, I have a bias when it comes to these operating systems, although I don't own an Android phone. Maybe if I owned an Android phone, I wouldn't be so biased. Who knows? Anyway, so there's my sales pitch. Well, hopefully as I'm talking, you guys are finishing up your interface. Sort of looks like that. Maybe we got a few cosmetic things to change with the sliders. We can change the values of the sliders. Remember how we hid or showed? Yeah, that window's got an issue with the glare. It comes in the afternoon. You know how we hid and we showed the that edit text or whatever we did in the last one. Now we can change the properties programmatically. So a lot of people see, I'm the type of person who would change it in the view did load, automatically initialize everything, because then I know it's going to be initialized correctly. But then there's another breed of people who just do it through the controller, just do it through the property settings, and then it's already set for you. So let's just change it through the property settings because it's more permanent that way. We want to change the value from 0 to 255. You don't have to know anything about RGB colors, but that's the scale. It goes from 0 to 255 for red, green, and blue. So we want to make sure that these guys don't go past that. So if you click on that sucker, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it from a distance there. On the right-hand side, if you've got the attribute inspector opened up, which is this little thing here, I don't even know what that resembles. It looks like a tie or something. It's already on 0, so you can just type in here 255 if you wanted to. And then the current value, we probably could just set it on 0, maybe. So I don't know if the instructions have you do that or not. Probably do. But see now, you see how the little ball's turned over here? So go ahead and do that for the other ones. Change the maximum value to 255. So it goes from 0 to 255. Then change the current value to 0. If you don't want to, you can put, if you want to make yours more interesting, you can put values on different numbers if you want. So, I don't know. I think this creates, somebody from graphics can tell me, does this create like a white screen or a black screen? The zeros? 0, 0, 0. Is that black or white?
Black.
Black. It's no color. And then white's all the color. 255, 255, 255. Okay, good. So any one of you guys would know that because you're still students. Once you graduate, you're not going to know anything after that. Goes downhill from there on. All right, so we're going to have a black screen if I initialized it through my view did load method. I would have a black screen because then it would initialize all the controllers at one time. But let's just keep it on this color here. Actually, it doesn't really matter. It works both ways. So we're going to also change the keyboard value return on the three fields to numbers and punctuation. And the return value to done, just like the same thing we did, but we don't have a responder on this. Instead, we have a value changer. So we're going to change the return type or return key type to done because we're going to signal that something's going to happen. When we get done moving it, it's going to trigger an event. The event's going to be that we're going to change, and we'll make a little method for it. We're going to change the values of the three boxes, and we're going to change the background color at the same time. And then we're going to change the text field. Instead of it showing text, we're going to show numbers in one of these boxes here. So let's also change the keyboard values for the three text fields. So we're looking at these three text fields to numbers. So let's take a look here. So on the slider, oops, and let's just go in here. I can get back to here's the screen I wanted. These are the three text fields I'm talking about. We're going to change the return type to done because we're going to resign that first responder. And these guys have a done event on them as well. There's a move, actually has a move, change to event. So you can take the assembly line approach like what I'm doing right now and just click on each one of them and change the done. Or you can do them individually. And we're going to change the text property to numbers. So let's take a look here. There used to be an option for it. Let's see. Let's take a look here. Refresh my memory. Numbers and punctuation. Keyboard values. Let's see. Maybe it's under keyboard values still. Keyboard. Numbers and punctuation. So I found it's in the same section. Different iOS versions, they move things around. This one actually is probably where it was before. I just couldn't remember. But go ahead and change right above where it says return key. We're the same location where you found that. Go ahead and change it to numbers and punctuation. What it does is it will format, instead of being text, it'll be a number format. It'll look like 1.0 instead of 10 or 1,0. Basically, it's not text anymore. We're representing a number value or a punctuation value, so it'll show the decimal point for us just nicely. All right, so once we're done with that, we're going to open up the view controller and we're going to have to wire these connections. So we're going to wire the three sliders, the three text boxes, and the one hexadecimal label to create properties that look like this. So I'm going to do the sliders first so I can remember I got red slider, green slider, blue slider. And we'll do the hex label underneath it. So I'm going to get rid of the side piece. I'm going to click on my tuxedo icon there. And over here, I'm going to put, now I'm going to put it, oops, I'm in the wrong file. We need to be in the viewcontroller.h file. This is, again, I see this and I go, oh yes, I'm in viewcontroller.h, but I'm not. So I'm just going to do what I normally do and pull this out. There we go. So now when I look at that and go, oh, I'm in the implementation file. I know which file I'm in. So I'm going to go into the viewcontroller.h file. Put a little room in here. Got red slider, green slider, and blue slider. It's like a Dr. Seuss. Thing 1, thing 2, thing 3 or something. Or I don't know how that goes. Red something, blue something, green something. Is that spring eggs and ham or something? I don't know. I don't know why I have a Dr. Seuss reference in my head right now, but I do. So let's see. This is red slider. Red slider. Yeah, we'll leave it on link. See, this is the interesting thing. So we have a slider as the type. We don't have ID as the type option in here because we can't treat it. Slider's not. It's way far down the hierarchy. It's a specific type. It's not compatible with this current. It is compatible with the previous types in the hierarchy. But when we use it, we're using it as a slider. It's a specialized ID, so it can't be generic. So we can't put ID on it. So even if you try to change it to ID, it's not going to work for you. The problem is you don't know that, you don't remember that. You try to do it programmatically instead of dragging it. And then you run into a situation where it won't take, it won't work. because there's a whole breed of people out there that just use ID for everything. That's not going to work. So anyway, there you go. There's an argument for not using it that way. Green slider. And then we got blue slider. So put blue slider in here. And then this is going to be the hex number here. I'm going to take this label away because I don't want that label on there anymore. Is that how big my hex number is? No, it's bigger. Okay, good. So let's control this one over here. Hex number. And I got my 3 little boxes here. What am I going to do with those boxes? So, oh, hex number. Oh, well, hex label, hex number. That's close. So now I got red text, green text, and blue text. And these guys are going to be properties. So I'm going to put the properties over underneath them. You can see how definitely represents a type A personality because I have everything in order by what it is. So, but it also makes it readable, I think, as well. I tell you, I've looked at some code where it's like, where's the property? Way down at the bottom. Oh, where's the other thing? It's way on the top. It's like how people used to write C code in the beginning. They used to like train you to put all your variable declarations right here and all your assignments right here, and then put comments in there what these variables were supposed to do. Or some people just put them all over the place. So, you put them all over the place, it's hard to find things. So this is going to be the red text. Let me go find out what I'm supposed to call it. Red text. Oh, I got it right. And this is the green text. And then we're going to have the blue text. If you learn anything today, you'll know the RGB colors. This will be the blue text. Now these guys you can change. No, you can't change the text field either, huh? Okay. So we got everything wired. You guys are wired. You're not wired. Keep wiring. So let's see. Now we're going to have to synthesize those properties. So we're going to add 2 new methods, however. So we're going to put 2 method prototypes in here. So let's add these 2 new method prototypes. I'm going to copy and paste them. Well, we don't actually have to. Okay, let me show you something actually. I'm gonna just do this first one here on the slider chain. No, I'm going to do the second one. I'm going to copy this one in here, this method here. And this is going to be on the text field changed, because we saw that in the last example. So I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to immediately notice that I got this empty little thing here. And people go, oh, I went to the internet and I found this little method and I put it, cut and paste and I put it in here. How do I connect it? How do I connect it to the UI? How do I get it to work? Well, you can go backwards with it. You can do one of 2 things. You can go this way from here and drag it out here by doing this with it. If you do this, you're going to get generic property. You're not going to get what you really want. This one here is text field changed. So because this makes more sense to put it here and then to wire it backwards, as I call it. So what you're going to do is, I'm going to show you how to do this one here. Click on the item you're going to wire, right mouse click it, and then on the did end or change, no, it's going to be value changed. Let me just do, I don't even know which one I'm supposed to do, but let's just do value changed right now, just to show you. I can take the X on value changed, and I can come down here like this. And then I can't do this. In the old days, you used to do this. It doesn't work anymore. You can't, if you try to do this, it's never going to work. Instead, you highlight the whole thing. And see, now I have it moved in. Well, what about this guy here? Am I going to do another one for it, another one for it, another one for it? No, I don't have to. Instead, I can just do the same thing over again. So I'm going to do value changed. And then voila, it's there. So now I have 2 of them. So now I need the 3rd one. So value changed is going to be wired this way again. So now I have all 3 of them on the same method. Pretty good. Well, that's what this was all about here. This was why we were going to add these 2 new prototypes and then wire them backwards, because it's easier just to add the one prototype. Could have done it one way or the other. In fact, let me show you the other way of doing it. Instead of just putting it in there, we could just create it. So here's the other one here. It's slider changed. So on the slider changed event, That was the value changed event that we did. I don't know if it was or not. I'm just kind of deviating for now from the instructions. But if I right mouse click up here, I have a value changed event here. I can wire it to one. I can still do it this way. And put here, what did this guy say? Slider changed. Slider changed. And I'm going to change my ID to slider, UI slider. So now I have it wired from this one, but I can also do the same thing. I can drag these guys over to the same one. So it doesn't matter if I like programmatically put it in here or if I just create it by one of the items and then drag the other ones to it. So if I were creating a calculator as an example, I'd have one for operators, one for numbers, one for the output, and just not have as many methods. So don't be afraid to reuse the methods with multiple components. It works just fine. You just wire it. So
what if I don't want to click and drag, use IDs or something?
you have to drag it eventually because you have to be able to form the connection. Actually, you don't really have to. You can do it from here, but it's harder. It's technically easier to drag it one way or the other. In the old days, when they used to be called the interface builder, you actually had to type it in there, and it was kind of manual. In fact, you wrote the code, then you opened up this thing called the interface builder, and you typed in the names of all the methods that you were using for each one of the controls, and it was just kind of a nightmare because you had to mentally think about which one you were doing, which one. So I sort of like, actually, I've conformed to the drag and drop at this point because it's a little bit easier abstractly. But you can see, you can actually, like, I can change this here, the reference outlet, take it away from the view controller, put it on a different controller if I wanted to. I can take any of these. It doesn't have to be the value changed. I can take any of them and wire it down. I can't type it in anymore, though. They took that away. So you have to use the mouse to drag it. You can't do it without a mouse. It used to be you could, but you can't.
ID through any tags or any names?
You could create a variable, private data member, tag it through the type, but you still have to connect it somehow. And the connection is generally done through the mouse. Do you have another way of doing it?
I'm saying the wiring has to be done. Like in Java, if you create an object, we're gonna add an action to it. That's what we are doing.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just like Java with the action listener.
Action listener, but there's no wiring to be done.
Correct. In Java,
If
there's
you
no
use
wiring.
The object, it's fine. Right?
Yeah, in
The
Objective-C,
action is connected to the object.
you have to wire it with a mouse. It used to be a long time ago, like maybe version 3 or so, you could do it programmatically. You can get by 90% of it programmatically still, but eventually you're going to have to wire either if you make a property out of it or if you make a variable member, data member out of it in some class, you still got to wire it. It's actually not a bad requirement because in order to do this, you have to use Xcode. You can't make GUIs without Xcode. So I'm thinking, if they could get past this part of it, then you could do this in any language you wanted to with any environment. Maybe that's why they're keeping it. I don't know. That's an assumption. That maybe this is because of the Xcode factor. I don't know. Like otherwise, then you're going to have all these other third-party IDs out there that can do the same thing. If you can just do it by, you could just like Java, you could just take the code. You don't need a GUI, anything for it. You don't need an interface builder for it at all. You just programmatically do it all. Can't do that. You can do it with non-GUI components, but you can't do it with the GUI if you're going to wire the activity. You can do it with the gestures, however, which is kind of interesting. So if you wanted to, you could put a touch drag or touch gesture controller and put it on the view and program the gesture controller, but it's a little bit more work to do it that way. So we'll see touches. Actually, I'll do that one next. I got a monkey touch one that moves a monkey around on the screen. It's actually kind of fun. So that'll kind of show you that if I remember what I'm supposed to be doing here. All right, so we got all the pieces wired. Yeah?
I don't know why I can't drag and drop.
Hold on a second. Let me. Are you pressing down on the control button on the keyboard?
No.
That's probably why you can't drag and drop. Try pressing down on the control button. You know, it's funny because one version of Xcode that came out like for a day or so, and then I did an upgrade, and then it went away. You didn't have to press down the control button. Now you have to press the control button. Yeah.
No, now it works.
There was one version. I had it for like a day or so.
In the properties, I think we have like. If
Can you
we
turn
select-
off the control?
Yeah, we don't have to press the control. Like if you
Yeah.
select any of the slider on the right side, you have some properties. You can just drag that, like touchdown event. or-
Yeah, yeah. In the old days, you had to press the control for everything. Now, on certain things, you don't have to use the control for it. And then I know that in the settings, like I've already turned off the completion one, where if you put in the opening, there's a setting here. If you put like an opening bracket in, it'll automatically insert the closing one for you. I turned that off because I don't like that. It just bothers me to no end because it just keeps putting in closing brackets for me constantly. But if you're doing a series of nested like if else's or something or case switches, it just irritates me. So I turned that one off. But the problem is for teaching, I can't, especially when I do the recordings and stuff. I want to leave like as much as the defaults as possible because then students will go, well, when I do that, I don't get that. You know, and then you start using it like, oh yeah, it automatically puts it in, so you forget to put it in. You don't talk about putting it in because you don't have to put it in. So it changes the easeability of being able to follow along if my settings are completely different. But I do raise the fonts though, so your fonts are probably smaller. So that's because I'm old and blind. All right, so we got the slider, we got the text field. Now we're going to drag from the slider. Oh, we already did that to the 3. So we're supposed to connect the slider changed to all 3 of the sliders. We did that. And the value changed event. We did that. Okay, good. Over to the controller. Now, slider changed action. Did we do a slider changed action over here? Let's just take a look here. We did value changed. I don't think there's a such thing as a slider changed. Here's a slider changed to value. That's what we called our method. So value changed. Okay, that's good. I'm pretty sure it's not in the instructions that I left for myself here, but I'm pretty sure that's what we needed to do. So I'll also drag from the text field changed action to all 3 of the text field controls, and did end on exit event. Oh, I did the wrong one. I'm supposed to do the did end on exit. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, oh, I did the wrong one. So I could delete it, which is what I just did, and then do it again. Or while I'm up here, I can just do here, did end on exit, and this is the text field changed. And then I moved it up. There used to be a way, and let me see if I could do it with this one, of moving it up. There's no way of moving it up anymore. So it doesn't move up anymore. So instead I'm going to change my did end on exits for my text field changed. Which means I clicked in there and I changed it. Now it's going to have slightly different behavior. Sometimes it does work. Sometimes it doesn't work. So I'm just going to do it because that's what my tutorial says to do. Did end on exit. There we go. And then we change the exit. You know, actually, you don't even have to change the exit type to done anymore. It's automatically by default. So, all right. So when we're finished, the view controllers should be all connected, and they are. So make sure that you have all 3 of the connections correctly opened up. La la la. Okay. So we're going to add. Oh, I need to put it back. A private method prototype in viewcontroller.m. So I took it out, so I'm going to put it back in. I'm just going to easily copy and paste it here. So this one, you know, ironically, is going to use that method I pulled out. And yeah, not the method, but it's going to use the opening interface and at end, the beginning here. So if you pulled yours out, put it back in. And this is now private, and it's set label colors to contrast with background is the name of the method. And it's a method prototype that should belong in an interface. But we're not putting it in this interface. We could, it would just work just fine actually. But we're going to put it in this interface. Why? Because then you wouldn't be able to see what this one's for. It's private. It's not open to the public, which means you can't run it outside of. We could try to run it outside from the view. It's not going to work. So it's something we're going to call within the implementation. And you see I've got this lovely little like warning thing. It's because I haven't finished my implementation yet. I have method prototypes and properties in the .h that I haven't implemented in the .m file. So this is going to tell me a nasty little thing. It says method definitions for set label colors to contrast background not found. Now, of course it's not. I didn't put it in yet. So we're going to add the synthesize line. And I'm actually just going to copy this here. Copy and paste it in. So you want to synthesize. And I usually put these, again, I put them at the top, and I don't like putting them in 4 different lines. But here's how they were from the text. Did I not call it red text? Red slider. Well, I probably have some interesting character in here. See what I called them. Red text, green text, blue text with a capital T, hex number, blue slider, green slider, red slider.
That's text number instead of.
Did I put number in here instead? Red number? Oh, text number. Oh, text. Ah, gotcha, gotcha. These are right. These are good. It's text number instead of this one. Hex number. But you notice that the red thing was up above on the top because it was at the beginning of the synthesize. One of the main reasons why I don't like putting them on all these different lines like that. They really are all together. So this is the way that I would normally do it. Put them all on one line. It's really all one line. Just string them. So it keeps them all together. That way if there's something red, I'm not going to think that it has something to do with red text. It has something to do with hex number that's on there. All right, so let's go back to the implementation here. Add the following method to the implementation. This is the method here to what we just put the method prototype in, and so I'm going to copy and paste and put this guy in here. This is the set the label colors. So this is our Objective-C stuff, and you know what? It doesn't really matter where we put it. If it's one method, this is the thing I'd like to do, is I like to put it at the top of the file. If it's one method that's going to be used in everything else, but it's not part of the interface, I either like to put it at the top or at the bottom. At the bottom is normally where all of the actions implemented are going to be, so you have to put this at the top, but it doesn't really matter where you stick it. So let's take a look at, because this is the Objective-C class, let's take a look at the code here, see if we can understand what's going on. We're going to use a CG computer graphic float from CG Graphics, which is just a, kind of a standard graphic package for 2D graphics. Red value, green value, blue value, alpha value. So we created these variables, and we're going to use the variables, where we're going to set each one of the label colors to contrast with the background. So this is part of the view, and this is view.background color. Well, that's the same as this view over here. And if I were to click on the properties over here, and I were clicking on the view, I could set the background color, and here's the background color here. So this background color here that just got set to green is the property we're setting, just like I did the hidden this morning. So, oops, actually it looks like that here because the font's a little bit bigger. So that's where we get the view from. That's the view, and it's the higher level. These are all view components, by the way. They're all subclassed of view. So we're going to set the background color get red colon the value. The ampersand is the address of the value, which is going to be the value that's for the red in the slider. Green, same thing. Blue, same thing. Alpha value that we're going to set. It's just going to be the contrast. And then for ID sublabel in subview views, if I had other views in here, all the views, the background colors would be changed. In fact, we're going to look at another example, introspect, that just takes a look at the objects that are on the screen, treats them with an ID, and just sets them. Does all the labels get changed, and all the text boxes get changed and stuff per the ID, which is just a view component. So we have views with subviews. For the ID in the subview, so for each one of the subviews in self-view subviews, which is going to be the array of all of the views that we've got. This is an array, by the way. If a subview is a member of the class UI label class, if it's a label, then the subview set color to UI color. So we actually have to create the color. The color that we're going to create is going to be red color minus whatever that red value is. Green is going to be -1 minus whatever that green value is. So we're going to set the values of the colors of the RGB scale per the color that we're defining by the slider values, and then set the view background to be equal to that color. So we're changing the colors from the scale of 0 to 255 depending upon what value we're selecting on the sliders. We're going to take those numbers and we're going to put them in the text boxes. What we're going to do with it next. So, but this is the one that's going to actually set the views. So the subviews inside of the view is going to change the colors of the background colors of those views. Now on the slider changed event here, we're going to set the color from the sliders. So we get the background color, we're going to create a background color that's going to be equal to the UI color of all these combinations that we're doing, from 0 to 255 from each one of the 3 sliders that we're looking at. And then we're going to set the labels. So this should look awfully familiar with you. Actually, this is what we did before. See, set, okay, they also used the same. So that's what I didn't want to type in before. But this is the cast here from an integer value. This is interesting, CCast. But let me talk about the text here. So this is what we did this morning, actually. So self is ourselves. Technically, we should use self. I wasn't using self this morning. But self is like this in Java. It's this object. So self dot, or you can leave self out, dot red text dot text is equal to, and then NS string, string with format, and then we're going to create the formatted string. But if we just, which is actually kind of interesting, this is a decimal number. This is not. This is a float number, or it's not a compatible number, I should say. It's not a single value number. There's more precision to that number. So we're casting it to an int by using what's called this is a C cast to an int. So it's a type cast, which is okay to use. Objective-C is a dialect of C. So we can use casting from C, so which is kind of interesting. And the same behavior is implemented in Java and other languages as well, so strict cast. We're going to do the same thing with the green text, same thing with the blue text, same thing except for the hex decimal number, the hex label. It's going to be, here's our format, and then there's our values, so we're going to take them down to a 2 precision, and we're going to get rid of all the extra numbers that are on the end of it. So we're rounding it to 2 digits with this O2X. So, and when the X is a text character, we're going to put next to it. Or it's going to be the format we're going to look at. So, actually, no, it's the value of the number that we're going to stick in there. So, let me cut and paste, and we'll see what happens here. This is the slider changed event. In fact, I'm not going to take. I already have the method created because I dragged and dropped, and I've got this slider method, or do I? Actually, good question. Let's go take a look at the code. So this one here we added, this was the set label colors. I do have a slider changed. Here it is here. So whether you put it in manually, if I put it in manually, let's just take a look here actually. This one here, text field changed, doesn't exist because I wrote it here. This one I wired here. When you wire it in, it actually gives you both sets. I don't think I have a text field changed in here. I don't. I just have the one I wired in, which means I might have to add the other one manually because I added it manually the other way. But this one's here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut, or copy and paste. So I'm going to put this code in here. Oops. There we go. So I'm going to put this code into the body of the slider change. That's the code I was just talking about on the slider changed. And I'm going to have to change the hex label. Blue text. My hex labels hex number. There we go. Notice the error went away, and the error was way up here. So it's not the best. So you kind of just sort of have to remember where are these errors going to be in order to figure it out, but it's okay. If I had saved it, probably would have adjusted to the right location. I don't know. Well, that class next door is kind of loud. Is that, anyway. Text field changed. So let's go to copy this guy over. And, well, we got it as soon as I put it in here. This is the next method that we looked at. UI color. Well, that's because, again, we have the label here. But, you know, see, it's like way up here. Well, let's go ahead and number. Change that number in there. And no, that didn't fix the problem. So, yeah, it did fix the problem. Okay, good. So when the text fields change, here we go here, text field change. So this is on the did end on exit. We can also put it on the changed, but because we did that done event on the key when we press return, it's going to signal a done. So it's an interesting noises in this class. We're going to set the sliders with the values that are in the text field. So the sliders change the text fields change the sliders. And so we can adjust the colors back and forth depending upon what we like. And we can actually see them move. So it's really the same code, but it's backwards. So we get the value from the text field, self.readtext.text init value. Returns the integer value. So this is kind of an interest, and we put numbers. We change the text to support numbers and symbols, so the number is a number. So we get the integer value. If we did this with text, didn't change the property, left it alone, so there was text in the text field. Edit text, I think it's called edit text, but long story short, we'd have to convert the text to an integer, create an integer from a string. So this is a little bit easier because we're just going to cast the integer value from the number that's already in the field. And then we're going to do the same thing as before. We're just going to change the slider value to match what's in the value. So set the background color and then set the value that's in the slider. And then set the hexadecimal label to make sure that it shows the right converted format for the colors that we have in there. Now, if we want to, on the view did load, we can change the background color. We can change the sliders to any color that we want, or we can just leave it alone. Actually, it works just fine. But if you want to preset it, change the view did load method to read as follows. So you can do this by type of change C assignment as long as the types are the same. Ah, yes, this is showing you a little bit of trick here. Self red text is equal to self blue text, which is equal to self green text, which is equal to nil. Actually, this is not a bad thing. In fact, there's another way of releasing the method. So if you set it to nil, you're clearing out the value that may be stored in there if there's garbage in there. Because what you're looking at is this garbage collection feature where it's going to initialize itself to a memory address. And when it does that, by default, if it's a number, it's going to be 0. But if there's another number stored there already, it might be something else. So if you want to make sure you've nilled out everything, all your objects, everything that's nil is garbage collected, which means at the end, when your program unloads, if you say something is equal to nil, then you've made it available to be garbage collected. So it runs a little bit more efficiently, but people leave that out. They don't really think about memory as a concept. So let's see, let's go back up to the view did load method. And the view did load is up here. And we know that super view did load is calling the super method. So it doesn't really matter where it appears in here actually. So now I'm setting them all, and I know I need to set this guy to number. So I've set all my text objects to nil, which basically just makes them empty, makes them garbage collectible. So we've done so far. You can read through this on your own. I kind of explained it through the code. If you didn't like my explanation of it, you can read through this couple of paragraphs here and figure out what was said. But, now we should be able to run it and see what happens, actually. Let's go ahead and run it. Error crash, bang. This build successful. So we're gonna have a green screen because I set the green screen. I haven't set any of the slider values. That's what I was saying before. If you did the view did load, you initialized all of the labels and everything, you could actually just go ahead and set all the values initially. Instead, it's going to happen when I do this. I clicked on it. Did you see how it flickered? Some people don't like that. I clicked on it and initialized the objects. All of a sudden, it was like, oh, we're doing something? And my buttons aren't working. Why are my buttons not working? My colors are working.
We need to define the red value, green.
Oh, bummer. Nothing's working, huh?
Do we need to define the method for setting the green color value, and we didn't define?
Oh, we probably left that out. You're right. Our functionality is working, but we're not getting our values here. Actually, let's see. I want to see something real quick here. No. Okay, so we left something out, so let's go take a look here. Now, what did I leave out? Let's see. Set the label colors. Let's go back. The view did load in that part. We put this guy in, and this guy was for the slider changed method. X label string. That should have been okay. Set the label colors to contrast background. Did we put this method in? No, I don't think we did, actually. Let's take a look. Yeah, we did. Let's take a look here. Let's see. Value changed. Editing changed. Editing did end. Changed. Reference red slider. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Let's take a quick look here. Red slider, green slider, hex number. Ooh. I didn't put the properties in for the text fields either. Put notice I did. I put them in as outlets. Yes, I did put them in. Here are my properties. But you know what? I didn't. I didn't actually. I did the did end on exit, but I didn't put the properties in. So I didn't actually, which is actually kind of interesting. The property of the UI text field is an IBL. That should have worked. That should have worked. Take another look at this here. Oops. Just leave me alone for a second. The reference outlet. Let's see. I think that's going to be my problem, but let's just take a look here. backtrack a little bit. Whoops, that's not going to work. Okay, so the background isn't being set correctly. Let's just take a look here. And the numbers aren't being set correctly. Three text fields, one hex label. We did that part. Slider, slider, slider. Properties are set. Add these two methods. Did that. Drag the sliders over text field. Okay, let me try something else. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close this project out. And I'm going to download the solution file that's out here. I'm going to take a look here to see what the difference is. I probably left something out is what I'm thinking. Let's just take a look at the solution, see if the solution works. The solution is going to be 6.0, I think. Yeah, 6.1 actually. So let's take a look here, then we'll compare the two. We'll see what happened. I probably... good question. It may have been that I set that background color, but that shouldn't have been the problem. So now you see a different emulator. For those people who have never seen this before, this is before... See, I had the green set, so yeah. So now this one should work. So what we're looking for is on the slider change, I'm thinking that I don't have the change event wired correctly. On the slider change, we should be getting the numbers to appear in the boxes, as well as the decimal, hexadecimal label down here. So this appears, the functionality appears to be working. So if you're familiar with the older, I like the way the older emulator looks actually. The 7.0 is like that flat little screen, but this looks like a little iPod. So. All right, so let's see. I'm going to fix my project here. Mine was called Color Changer. The other one was called Color Chooser. So I'm going to do a little side-by-side little thing here just because now I'm kind of curious. I go into the .h. Let's get rid of the side piece here 1 second. Hello, .h. UI sliders, they're weak, none of, okay, so these guys are good. Only difference is that I have it called hex number instead of hex label, that's okay. And I got my three properties, red, green, and blue, and I've got my slider change, unless I have them wired backwards, slider change, because I have the order different here. I could have had them wired backwards. Let's just take a look. If you're, let's not upgrade this one either. If you're familiar with the older project type, you actually have XIB files. So if you run across files or projects that have XIB on them instead of main storyboard, it's prior to 7.0. And it's the single instead of the storyboard option. They took the storyboard option away and they made it the default. So now all projects are storyboard. So that's what that's about. Not really worth too much troubleshooting. Let me just take a quick look here. I just want to see if I have this red, green, and blue. Those are the slider change. This text field changed. Storyboard. Value changed. That slider changed. Good, good, good. The lights are on, but nobody's home. Let's see. Let's just do this. Oh, view did load. Did we add this to the view did load? No. Set label colors to contrast with background on the view did load. So I'm going to copy it out of here. How did I not do that? I don't know. Maybe it was missing from my instructions. I did not put this in the view did load method. So let's put this in the view did load method. We initialized the set label colors to background color, which is probably our problem because our labels weren't changing correctly. So, yeah, let's try this one more time. If not, I'll abandon ship here. But I think it's actually going to work. Let's see what happens. And if not, I actually just cut and paste the code from one to the other. We're still not working. So let me try one more thing, actually. View did unload. Well, view did, oh, you know what? The view did unload was supposed to get, I put it in the view did load to set it all to nil. So the values were being set to nil in the view did load. I don't want to stick them in there. I want to stick these guys in the view did unload. Because this will actually give us our garbage collection that we're looking for. This is number. So let's take this out of here. So the view did load is setting the colors to the contrast with the background. The view did unload, which was a critical mistake right there that I did, actually, is setting all the values to nil, which is going to give us our garbage collection. Doesn't belong. We're not going to garbage collect right in the beginning. That could have been the problem. Let's just see. I don't think that would have been a problem because we were initializing it with a slider. Let me just see if anything else was a red flag here. And then we'll abandon ship, but let's see. Did receive memory. You did unload. Did receive memory message. No, it looks pretty good, actually. Everything else looks pretty good. The text field changed. Did we do the text field changed? We did the text field change. Let's run it one more time. So now we're garbage collecting on the unload instead of the load. And we have a working program. Alright, so that was the problem. So the problem was I was too quick and I put something in the load instead of the unload. And what I put in the load was to remove and garbage collect everything.
It was setting the value all to 0. That's why we are not getting the color. Like we are getting always black.
Oh no, yeah, but the problem before is that these numbers weren't showing up, and this number down here wasn't changing. Watch this. Let me show you what I mean. In here, in the view did load, if I put this stuff here, garbage collect it right in the beginning, in the did load, setting all the values to nil is going to garbage collect it. So if I run it right now, I should have the problem coming back. But we'll just see what happens. The problem has returned because I've garbage collected all of the values. I've set all of the values aren't here anymore. But we set them to 0 on the controller, so when the controller's got initialized, that's why our background turned black. As soon as I click on it, it turns black. Nothing happens because the garbage, the values are being collected. They're all set to nil on the view did load. So this here nil, this is the problem here. I put it accidentally in the view did load when I should have put it in the unload, because what I really want to do is when the app is done, I want this stuff to go away and not hang out in memory. This is going to cause it on the view did unload. When I stop the app, it's going to pull it all out of memory and clean it up for me. But why do I want to pull it out of memory and clean it up before we start the app? It's wrong. So what I really want to do is put it in the view did unload. So now if I run it, it's actually kind of a good example of how garbage collection sort of works here. We were garbage collecting it right in the beginning, so now it should work, and it does what I want it to do because I'm not throwing away the values. I threw it all away in the view did load, which is the view did load is the first method. This is the first method that happens when the app starts up. This is the last method that happens when the app goes away. When I do this, Setting it to nil empties it out, but it doesn't, it collects the value, so you can't set the value.
So is it basically for the one UI controller view? If we have a second one, this will run for the first controller view.
If this was on the second and we had another one, that would work just fine.
Okay.
It's the fact that we're setting the objects to nil, we're zeroing and we're emptying them out. So the object values aren't being stored. If the object values aren't being stored, they can't be changed. If we set them all to, if we take this out completely, we still have a working app, actually. Problem is we have some potential memory leak if we're not careful. This will still work. I just pulled out the nils, and because this is the view did unload, so technically this will work just fine. You know, you ever have a situation where your phone just dies? Or, you know, it just freezes up, or your iPad just freezes up? Usually caused by a memory leak. We just created a memory leak in this app. A potential memory leak. So if the runtime environment doesn't clean it up, I just made the leak by taking out the codes to zero it out. If I don't zero out those objects that I created, the objects aren't going to be memory. If they aren't going to be swept up by the garbage collector, if they don't get swept up by the garbage collector, they're still out there technically. If they're still out there, they could possibly be taking out memory. Eventually we're going to run out of memory because we made them strong, which means they're not going to be collected until they're nilled. We nil them out. They're out there. And when you do that and you run a couple of apps like that and you run it over and over again, yeah, the whole thing's going to freeze up on you eventually. So they always say to null it out, to null it out by setting it to nil. Just makes a cleaner interface, prevents the memory leak. So in an attempt to do that, I stuck that in the view did load. Put it in the view did, those objects don't exist, you can't set them, you can't change them, you can't do anything with them. You already destroyed them, which is why the app wasn't working. But now it's working because it's in the right spot. Anyway, so I guess it was a good mistake to make because it gave me something else to talk about. But we have a working app now, hopefully. But yeah, that is interesting. Oh, here's the blue. I like the blue. Black. Anyway, if you're bored, you can play around with colors. So, questions on this one? Everyone get it to work? Who was trying to get it to work? If not, try it again. Actually, it's not a bad idea to troubleshoot it like I just did, because then it'll help you kind of figure stuff out at the same time. Well, if you don't know what you're doing, sometimes the troubleshooting doesn't work out well though either. Anyway, so let me stop this video. Stop this recording.